always those places that you should not visit. There are sounds that should remain unheard. And things that should never be seen. Well, I must be the contrarian. I have been to those places. I have heard those sounds. And I have seen what was said should remain unseen. Come. Come. Let me take you to that glorious madness. Let us visit a dark myth.
No holiday for me. No. Projects to finish, designs to make, and Mr. Gilbert has to have his new steam engine design done on time. Yes. Always on me to fix, to make, to build. Oh, I have my vacation all designed, polished, and planned out. You're too late to stop me. My beauty, my love is coming. Yes. Here we go. Time to close up your back panel, my dearest automaton. Look how beautiful you are. A face of porcelain and brass, eyes of agates, and the finest blonde hair I could find. Well, involuntarily remove. She was wasting her life anyway. She won't miss her hair at the bottom of the river. Now, my dearest, you're all wound up. Steam engine is lit and fully functional. Go, my wonderful creation. Make this city quiet. Give me the holiday I always wanted. It's time for you to kill them all. No bullets will stop you. No fire or hammer. Go, my automation lady. Go, my automaton lady of death. All my work is done. Go play. Play in the blood of humanity. September 23rd. Settling into the new house. The neighbors seem nice enough, but strangely quiet even when I ask about the house that I just bought. Each time I bring up anything about it, or my plans to improve it, they lose interest and walk away. It must be a thing with the miners. Too much time underground digging at the coal. September 26th. I spent the day checking the furnace and the ductworks. Oddly, the south side of the house always seems a bit warmer. I haven't been able to find out why. A good survey of the house plans might be needed. I'll do it tomorrow. September 30th. Spent several days going over the house blueprints. Something is way off on the south side of the house. The actual dimensions are far bigger than what it should be. I still can't regulate the heat on that side of the house. And now there's noises coming from the walls. It sounds like wind. October 7th. Success! I discovered that there's a big error in the blueprints. There must be a room behind the walls on the south side of the house. There are no windows or doors, but it's there. It has to be. I'll look for the door Monday. Tomorrow, my wife and child arrive. October 9th. She's gone. My little Sarah. The police and some of the neighbors are looking for her. My wife left her alone upstairs. There should be no way for her to leave the house without anyone seeing her. We're sick with dreadful worry. No one seems to be taking us too seriously. Even the police only help out of duty, not concern. My Sarah is gone. October 11th. It has to be because of the lack of sleep. We heard Sarah screaming in the night. My wife's son and I woke up near 2 in the morning to hear the screams. We heard her. Only the sounds came from the hidden room. There's no way in. I took an axe to the walls to try and break in. It's all made of solid granite. How could this be? The screaming stopped. We can't hear Sarah now. And it's been 6 hours. I need to find some other way to break through. It's the same coming from the outside. One giant granite block. October 20th. My wife and son left for the motel. We never heard Sarah again. But there is a sickening sigh and moaning coming from the granite block now. Why was this terrible thing built in the house? Who would hide this infernal thing within walls? October 30th. I finally stripped the walls fully away from the block. It's all perfectly smooth except for one mark. 3 linked triangles with the center one inverted. I'm headed to the town library to do some research on what it could mean. October 31st. It opened when I touched the symbol at midnight. A portal or energy gateway appeared. My Sarah's in there. I see where she went. I see what it is. The town must have known. These locals hid it from us. Just beyond the doorway. Bodies. Thousands and thousands. This is how you get to hell. Sarah, is that you? No. Who are you?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to go over the origins of the Skaven. For those of you that don't know, the Skaven are a race in the game of Warhammer, the Old World. A few radical scholars and university professors argue endlessly over the true origins of the children of the Horned Rat, known simply as the Skaven race. Some have speculated that the Skaven are an offshoot or variant of the Beast race, while others insist that the Skaven were not descended from man at all, but an evolved and mutated version of a normal rat. However, the most terrifying thing about this subject is that the vast majority of mankind would agree that there is no such thing as a Skaven, and those that dare to speak openly about such matters are often shunned by normal society, and at worst burned at the stake for such heresy. Skaven are naturally shy, conniving, and difficult to determine, as their society and race dwell naturally in the underground tunnels far from the reach of normal observers. Along with this, Skaven would only surface during their most violent and inexplicable wars, from which once they are defeated or victorious, their armies would simply slump back to their tunnels and mysteriously disappear from sight for many decades afterwards. The only source scholars could gather about the first existence of the Skaven was mentioned in an old Tilian tale called The Doom of Kavasvar. The version most commonly referenced by scholars is an ancient epic poem of 13 stanzas. 13. In either the original Tilian or a translation, copies of this tale have all been destroyed or have gone missing over the course of centuries. Some speculate that imperial authorities accused the text of being heretical and burned all the knowledge it held. Others believe that the Skaven might have even had a hand in its disappearance. The tale, however, lives on in the lands of Tilia, as the story is a very common piece of folklore among the many farmers and commoners that live in the rolling countryside of the land. Indeed, the Tillians of that land are far closer to these vermin than many would care to admit. And this old story was once foretold by their grandfathers, 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 and ages long ago, in a time when one of mankind's cities was truly at its pinnacle. Once upon a time, long, long ago, men and dwarves lived together beneath the roof of one great city. Some said it was the oldest and greatest city in the world, and it existed before the time of the Longbeards and Manlings, built by an older and wiser hand in the dawn of the New World. The city lay both above and below the earth, in keeping with the nature of the populace that dwelled there. The dwarves ruled in their great halls of stone below the ground, and wrestled the fruits of the rock free with their daily long toil, while the Manlings reaped the fields of swaying corn that surrounded the city with a patchwork of blanket and gold. The sun smiled, men laughed, and everyone was happy. Of course, everyone was happy. A long time ago in a, land far, far away. One day, the men of the city decided that they should give praise to their gods for their good fortunes. They planned a temple such as the world had never seen before. Of course, that always works to, someone's advantage. In the central square of a colossal hall would be built and topped with a single cloud-piercing tower. A tower so tall it would touch the very heart of the heavens, because that's always a good thing. After much planning and with the help of the Longbeards, they set about their monumental task of building it. Weeks became months, and months became years, and still the Manlings built and built and built. Men grew old and gray working on that great temple, their sons continuing their work through summer sun, winter rain. At last, after many generations, work began on the great spire itself. Years passed, and the tower reached such a height that the Manlings found it ever more difficult to take the stone up to the top. Eventually, the work slowed to a crawl, and finishing the tower seemed impossible. Then one came among the men of the city who offered his help in the great scheme. He asked a single boon of them in return, and claimed that if they would grant him this, he would complete the tower in a single night. The Manlings said to themselves, "What have we got to lose?" and offered to make a bargain with the gray-clad stranger. All he wished was to add his own dedication to the gods onto the temple structure. The Manlings agreed, and the bargain was struck. At dusk, the stranger entered the unfinished temple and bade the Manlings to return at midnight. Clouds slept over the moons, cloaking the temple in darkness as the Manlings left. All over the city, men watched and waited as the hours slipped past until, near midnight, by ones and twos, they gathered again in the temple square. The wind blew and the clouds parted as they gazed up at the temple. It rose like an unbroken lance against the sky, pure and white. At its very peak, a great horned bell hung gleaming coldly in the moonlight. The stranger's dedication to the gods was there, but of the stranger himself, there was no sign. The Manlings rejoiced that their father's work had been finished. They surged forward to enter the temple. Then, at the stroke of midnight, the great bell began to toll. Once, twice, thrice. Slow, heavy waves of sound rolled across the city. 4, 5, 6 times the bell rang, like the torpid pulse of a bronze giant. 7, 8, 9. The rolling of the bell grew louder with each ring, and the Manlings staggered back from the temple steps, clutching their ears. 10, 11, 12, 13. At the 13th strike, lightning split the skies and thunder echoed through the night. High above, the dark circle was lit by a bright flash, and all fell ominously silent. The manlings fled to their beds, frightened and puzzled by the portents they had seen. Next morning they arose to find that the darkness had come to their city. Brooding storm clouds reared above the rooftops, and such rains fell as had never been seen before. Black like ash, the rain fell and puddled in the streets, slicking the cobbles with darkly iridescent colors. At first, some of the manlings didn't worry. They waited for the rain to stop so that they might resume their work. But the rain didn't stop. The winds blew stronger and lightning shook the high tower. Days stretched into weeks, and still the rain did not stop. Each night the bell tolled 13 times, and each morning the darkness lay across the city. The manlings became fearful and prayed to their gods. Still the rains did not stop, and the black clouds hung like a shroud over the fields of flattened corn. The manlings went to the dwarves and beseeched their help. The Longbeards were unconcerned. What matter a little rain on the surface? In the bosom of the earth all was warm and dry. Now the manlings huddled in their dwellings, fear gnawing at their hearts. They sent some of their number to faraway places to seek help, but none of them returned. Some went to the temple to pray and sacrifice their dwindling food to the gods, but they found the temple door shut. The rain grew heavier. Dark hailstones fell from the sky and crushed the sodden crops. The giant bell tolled the death knell over the terrified city. Soon great stones cleft the heavens, rushing down like dark meteors to smash the homes of the manlings. Many sickened and died from no apparent cause, and the newborn babies of the manlings were hideously twisted. Skulking vermin devoured what little stored corn there was left, and the manlings began to starve. The manling elders went to see the dwarves again, and this time demanded their help. They wanted to bring their folk below ground to safety. They wanted food. The Longbeards grew angry and told the manlings that lower workings were flooded and their food had also been devoured by rats. There remained barely enough food and shelter for them and their kinsmen. They cast the manlings out of their halls and closed their doors once more. In the ruins of the city above, each day became more deadly than the last. The manlings despaired and called for succor from the dark gods, whispered the names of forgotten demon princes in the hope of salvation, but none came. Instead, the vermin returned bigger and bolder than ever. Their slinking bird shapes infested the broken city, feasting on the fallen and pulling down the weak. Each midnight the bell tolled 13 times on high, seeming now brazen and triumphant. The manlings lived as hunted creatures in their own city, as great rat packs roamed the streets in search of them. At last the desperate manlings took up such weapons as they had and beat upon the dwarven doors, threatening that if they did not emerge, they would drag them out by their beards. No reply came from within. The manlings took up beams and battered down the doors to reveal the tunnels below, dark and empty. Stealing themselves, the pitiful remnants of the city's once proud populace descended into the pits. In the ancient hall of kinship, they found the dwarves, now naught but gnawed bones and scraps of cloth, and there they saw by the dying light of their torches the myriad eyes about them, glittering like liquid midnight as the rats closed in for the kill. The manlings stood back to back and fought for their lives, but against such implacable ferocity and countless numbers of the verminous horde, their weapons were useless. The tide of monstrous rats flowed over them one by one, dragging them down to be torn apart. the yellow chiseled teeth sinking into their soft flesh, the dark tufted mask drowning their pitiful screams with their hideous chittering. The Skaven care little for the past and do not keep any record of history. For a Skaven, there are only two times worth thinking about. Right now, when they are not ruling the world, and very soon, when they will be. The only history the Skaven do consider worthy of, though, is personal rather than racial. One might recall such things as the glory days, when you rose in power in a sect, or the despicable enemy that brought about your downfall. But rarely would you think about your origins, or any great achievements of any Skaven other than yourself. They have no rituals or remembrances of their dead, for the Skaven are a jealous breed, and would rather undermine their fellows and praise them for their achievements. Beyond this, they have no real or consistent concept of time or dates, nor years, generations, or ages. Therefore, the history of the Skaven remains unknown, mostly unknowable to the inhabitants of the old world. Skaven themselves do not care about it. The few humans who make an effort to collect and catalog it find themselves facing insurmountable difficulties. The only sources available are those few humans who have witnessed the culmination of Skaven plans and somehow managed to live to tell the tale. Moreover, it is clear that many human agents, for reasons both nefarious and well-intentioned, have actively purged or altered what few records exist of the rat men's actions, and persecute those who search these areas too deeply. Whatever the case, what little bits of the history that can be gathered, they're taken from scripts and folklore, from tales and legends passed down by the generations from time long ago. And that is what we know. Thank you so very much, everyone who has popped in here tonight. Thank you all for listening to these tales. It has been a wonderful experience to get to do this in the month of October. Thank you, big thank you to Adega Outlaw for doing this with me. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you all next time on 7 Kinds of Mischief.